Hello everyone, today I'm going to read The Death on the Nile by Agatha Christie, Part2, Chapter 17. Here we go. Chapter 17. Andrew Penningston displayed all the conventional reactions of the grief and shock. He was, as usual, carefully dressed. He had changed into a black tie. His long, clean-shaven face bore a bewildered expression. "Gentlemen," he said sadly, "this business had got me right down. Little Lynette, why, I remember her as the cutest little thing you can imagine. How proud of her Malfish Ridgway used to be, too. Well, there's no point in going on it. Just tell me what I can do. That's all I ask." Race said, "To begin with, Mr. Penningston, did you hear anything last night?" "No, sir. I can't say I did. I have the cabin right next to Dr. Besser's, number 3839, and I heard a sudden commotion going on in there round about midnight or so. Of course, I didn't know what it was at the time. You heard nothing else? No shots?" Andrew Penningston shook his head. "Nothing whatever of that kind. And you went to bed? Must have been some time after 11. He leaned forward. "I don't suppose it's news to you to know that there's plenty of rumors going about the boat. That half-French girl, Jacqueline de Belfort. There was something fishy there, you know. Lynette didn't tell me anything, but naturally I wasn't born blind or deaf. There's been some affair between her and Simon sometimes, hasn't there? Cherchez la fin. That's a pretty good sound rule. And I should say you wouldn't have to Cherchez far." Poirot said, "You mean that in your brief Jacqueline de Belfort shot Madame Doyle?" "That's what it looks like to me. Of course, I don't know anything." "Unfortunately, we do know something." Mr. Penningston looked startled. "We know that it is quite impossible for Jacqueline de Belfort to have shot Madame Doyle." He explained carefully the circumstances. Penningston seems reluctant to accept them. "I agree, it looks all right on the face of it. But this hospital nurse woman, I'll bet she didn't stay awake all night. She dozed off and the girl slipped out and in again." "Hardly likely, Monsieur Penningston. She had administered a strong opiate, remember. And anyway, a nurse is in the habit of sleeping lightly and waking when her patient wakes." "It all sounds rather fishy to me," declared Penningston. Race said in a great authoritative manner, "I think you must take it from me, Mr. Penningston, that we have explained all the possibilities very carefully. The result is quite definite. Jacqueline de Belfort did not shoot Mrs. Doyle, so we are forced to look elsewhere. That is where we hope you may be able to help us." "I?" Penningston gave a nervous start. "Yes, you were an intimate friend of the dead woman. You know the circumstances of her life, in all possibilities, much better than her husband does, since he only made her acquaintance a few months ago. You would know, for instance, of anyone who had a grudge against her. You would know, perhaps, whether there was anyone who had a motive for desiring her death." Andrew Penningston passed his tongue over rather dry, looking lips. "I assure you, I have no idea. You see, Lynette was brought up in England. I know very little of her surroundings and associations. And yet," mused Poirot, "there was someone on board who was interested in Mrs. Doyle's removal. She had a new escape before, you remember, at this Billy place, when the boulder crashes down. Ah, but you were not there, perhaps?" No, I was inside the temple at the time. I heard about it afterward, of course. A very near escape, but possibly an accident. Don't you think? Poirot shrugged his shoulders. One thought so at the time. Now, what wonders? Yes, of course. Bennington wiped his face with a fine silk handkerchief. Colonel Race went on. Mr. Dole happened to mention someone being on board who bore a grudge, not against her personally, but against her family. Do you know who that could be? Bennington looked genuinely astonished. No, I've no idea. She didn't mention the matter of you? No. You were an intimate friend of her father's. You cannot remember any business operations of his that might have resulted in ruin for some business opponent? Pennington shook his head helplessly. No outstanding case. Such operations were frequent, of course, but I can't recall anyone who uttered threats. Nothing of that kind. In short, Mr. Bennington, you can't help us? It seems so. I deplore my inadequacy, gentlemen. Race interchanged a glance with Poirot. Then he said, I'm sorry too, we'd had hopes. He got up as a sign the interview was at the end. Andrew Pennington said, As Doyle laid up, I expected he'd like me to see two things. Pardon me, Colonel, but what exactly are the arrangements? When we leave here, we shall make a non-stop run to Shalal, arriving there tomorrow morning. And the body? Will be removed to one of the cold storage chambers. Andrew Pennington bowed his head. Then he left the room. Poirot and Race again interchanged a glance. Mr. Pennington, said Race, lighting a cigarette, was not at all comfortable. Poirot nodded. And, he said, Mr. Pennington was sufficiently perturbed to tell a rather stupid lie. He was not in the temple of Abu Simbel when that boulder fell. I, Mukiv Paula, can swear to that, as I just come from there. A very stupid lie, said Race, and a very revealing one. Again, Poirot nodded. But for the moment, he said, and smiled, we handled him with a glove of kid. Is it not so? That was the idea, agreed Race. My friend, you and I understand each other to the marvel. There was a faint grunting noise, a stir beneath their feet. The Karnak had started on her homeward journey to Shalal. The Pulse, said Race. That is the next thing to be cleared up. You have the plan? Yes, he glanced at his watch. It will be lunchtime in half an hour. At the end of that meal, I propose to make an announcement. Just state the fact that the pearl has been stolen, and that I must request everyone to stay in the dining saloon while the search is conducted. Poirot nodded approvingly. It is well imagined. Whoever took the pearls still have them. By giving no warning beforehand, there will be no chance for them being thrown overboard in a panic. Race drew some sheets of paper toward him. He murmured apologetically, I'd like to make a brief preface of the fact that I go along. It keeps one mind free of confusion. You do well. Method and order. They're everything, replied Poirot. Race wrote for some minutes in his small, neat script. Finally, he pushed the result of his labors towards Poirot. Anything you don't agree with there? Poirot took up the seats. They were headed. Murder of Mrs. Lynette Doyle. Mrs. Doyle was last seen alive by her maid, Louise Burgett. Time 11:30 11:30 approximate. For 11:30 to 12:20 following have alibis: Cornelia Robson, James Fansop, Simon Doyle, Jacqueline de Belfort, nobody else. But crime almost certainly committed after that time, since it is practically certain that pistol used was Jacqueline de Belfort's, which was then in her handbag. That her pistol was used is not absolutely certain until after post-mortem and expert evidence rebuilt, but it may be taken as overwhelmingly probable. Probable cause of events: X. Murder. Was witness of a scene between Jacqueline and Simon Doyle in observation salon and noted where pistol went under city. After the salon was vacant, X produced pistol. Procure pistol. His or her idea being that Jacqueline de Belfort would be thought guilty of crime. On this theory, certain people are automatically cleared of suspicion. Cornelia Robson, since he had no opportunity to take a pistol before James Fansop returned to search for it. Miss Bowers, same. Dr. Bessner, same. And B. Fansop is not definitely excluding for suspicion, since he had actually have picked pistol while declaring himself unable to find it. Any other person could have taken the pistol during that 10 minutes interval. Possible motive for the murder: Andrew Pennington. This is an assumption that he had been guilty for fraudulent practices. There is a certain amount of evidence in favor of that assumption, but not enough to justify making out a case against him. If it was he who rolled down the boulder, he is a man who can see the chance when it presents itself. The crime clearly was not premeditated, except in a general way. Last night's shooting scene was an ideal opportunity. Objection to the theory of Pennington's guilt. Why did he throw the pistol overboard, since it constituted a valuable clue against J.B.? Fleetwood. Motive: revenge. Fleetwood considered himself injured by Lynette Doyle. Might have overheard, seen, and noted the position of pistol. He may have taken pistol because it was a handy weapon, rather than with the idea of throwing a guilt of Jacqueline. This would fit it with throwing it overboard. But if that was the case, why did he write J in blood on the wall? And B. Cheap handkerchief. Found with pistol, more likely to have belonged to a man like Fleetwood than to one of the well-to-do passengers. Rosalie Audubon. Are we to accept Miss Van Schiller's evidence on the Rosalie's denial? Something was thrown overboard at the time, and that something was presumably the pistol wrapped up in the bullet hole. Point to be noted. Had Rosalie any motive? She may have disliked Lynette Doyle and even been envious of her, but as a motive for murder, that seems grossly inadequate. The evidence against her can be convincing only if we discover an adequate motive. As far as we know, there is no previous knowledge of a link between Rosalie Audubon and Lynette Doyle. Miss Van Schiller. The bullet stole in which the pistol was wrapped belonged to Miss Van Schiller. According to her own statement, she last saw it in the observation salon. She drew attention to it last during the evening, and the search was made for and without success. How did the stone came into the possession of X? Did X purloin it sometimes earlier in the evening? But if so, why? Nobody could tell in advance that there was going to be a scene between Jacqueline and Simon. Did X find the stone in the saloon when he went to get the pistol from the under the city? But if so, Why was it not found when the search for it was made? Did it never leave Mr. Van Schiller's possession? That is to say, did Miss Van Schiller murder Lynette Doyle? Is her accusation of Lottery Bolton a deliberate lie? If she did murder her, what was her motive? Other possibilities: robbery and motive. Possible, since the pearl has disappeared and Lynette Doyle was suddenly wearing them last night. Someone with a grudge against the Ridgway family. Possible. Again, no evidence. We know that there is a dangerous man on board, a killer. Here we have a killer and a death. May not the two be connected? But we should have to show that Lynette Doyle possessed dangerous knowledge concerning this man. Conclusions. We can group the persons on board into two classes: those who had a possible motive or against whom there is definite evidence, and those who, as far as we know, are free of suspicion. Group 1: Andre Pennington, Fleetwood, Rosalie Otterburn, Miss Van Schiller, Louis Bogart, robbery, Ferguson, political. Group 2: Mrs. Allerton, Tim Allerton, Cornelia Robson, Miss Burgess, Dr. Bessner, Signor Ligeti, Mrs. Otterburn, James Funter. Poirot pushed the paper back. It's better just very exact. What do you have written there? You agree with it? Yes. And now, what is your contribution? Poirot drew himself up in an important manner. Me, I posed myself one question. Why was the pistol thrown overboard? That's all? At the moment, yes. Until I can arrive in a satisfactory answer to that question, there is no sense anywhere. That must be the starting point. You will notice, my friend, that in your summary of where we stand. You cannot attempt to answer that point. Race shrugged his shoulders. Panic. Poirot shook his head. Perplexedly. He picked up the southern velvet wrap and smoothed it out, wet and limp, on the table. His fingers traced the scorch mark and the bonnet holes. Tell me, my friend, he said suddenly, you are more conversant with firearms than I am. Would such a thing as this, wrapped around the pistol, make much difference in the muffler in the sound? No, it wouldn't. Not like a silencer, for instance. Poirot nodded. He went on. A man, certainly a man, who had had such handling of firearms, would know that. But a woman would not know. Reyes looked at him curiously. Probably not. No. She would have read the detective stories there, where they are not always very exact as a detail. Reyes flicked the little pearl-handled pistol with his finger. This little fellow wouldn't make much noise anyway, he said. Just a pop, that's all. With any other noise around, 10 to 1 you wouldn't notice it. Yes, I have reflected as to that. Poirot picked up the handkerchief and examined it. A man's handkerchief, but not a gentleman's handkerchief. Not a gentleman's handkerchief. Sure, Woolworth, I imagine. 3 pence at most. The sort of handkerchief a man like a Fieldwood would own. Yes, Andre Pennington, I noticed carrying a very fine silk handkerchief. Ferguson? Suggested Reyes, possibly as a gesture. But there ought to be a bandana, used instead of a glove, I suppose, to hold the pistol and the obviate fingerprints, Reyes added, with a slight facetiousness. The clue of the blushing handkerchief. Ah, yes, quite a gin-filled colored, isn't it not? He laid it down and returned to the stall, once more examining the powder marks. All the same, he murmured, it is odd. What is that? Poirot said gently. Superb, Mr. Doyle, lying there so peacefully. with a little hole in her head. You remember how she looked? Les looked at him curiously. You know, he said, I've got an idea you were trying to tell me not something, but I haven't the faintest idea. What is it? What it is? Okay, thank you for listening. This is the end of the chapter 17 and the pages from 228 to 239. So it's about 12 pages. Yes, it's almost 12 pages because the last page have a full description here. Okay, 12 pages I've read. Okay, thank you. And this was quite interesting because they are going to solve the case, and they are going to think the old motives and the old suspicions was for the clue evidence was gathered, so they are shifting their thoughts to the considering about the murder with the motive and the clues, and this is really like a detective story. All right, the first of all, the finding scene, the first one, interviewed. I think so. No, not here. Okay. Yes, Andrew Pennington. He said a lie about the alibi of Timber, and he was using his handkerchief to wipe his face. That means he is in the third, or he was. Anyway, he's not. He's uncomfortable about this interviewing. That is definitely because he is telling a lie. So here's something he's hiding, I guess. But I don't know. What is it? I couldn't read with these dialogues. And the next one, they're starting to think about the old people who must be involved to this murder case. And there are some people has a motive, but there's no evidence. And some people have the evidence. Expected evidence, but there is no motive. This is really interesting. So at this point, I just thought that maybe there is not only one murder, maybe two murders will be involved. One has a motive to kill, but he or she didn't do by themselves. But he asked someone who don't have the motive to do the murder. The executioner, they took the executioner as a friend, or they're hiring, I don't know, but might be something happened. I just thought so. But while with reading this, there's something very odd, and I can't remember right now because this is very complicated stories. I have some thing, yes, the robbery things. So maybe a part was stolen, so that's going to be a motive for some people, like a robbery, who is Rosary, Miss Mansharer. Those people could have a motive to robbery. He wanted to steal. They wanted to steal pearl. That maybe happen. And the other things they're saying, but about the pistols, why the pistols throwing up, or maybe one more thought is that the handkerchief. The handkerchief never soften the sound. They said, yeah, I agree about that. The handkerchief is too thin. It never reduced the sound of the pistol. But actually, that pistol sound was like a pop. So nobody didn't notice that was a gunshot. It's just a pop of a champagne opening. So, actually the pistol sound was removed by some cushion. So that splash sound might be that cushion, something else. They threw the cushion, and maybe they attached some kind of cushion to the pistol and wrapped it with a handkerchief over it. Then they shot. After shooting, they threw out the cushion. That was a splash, and wrapped the pistol again only with a handkerchief, and that was found. So this movement can shift the murder's evidence to Miss Banshara. Yeah, that could be happen. So they just wanted to mislead. They want to mislead the evidence to Miss Banchero. That may be happen. So the handkerchief was very solid, or Miss Banchero is just telling a lie that was, but that is not reasonable. I think because they are saying that roommates don't understand the cushions, but Miss Banchero was, if my memory was correct, she was a novel writer. She was a writer, so maybe she researched everything about these small types and how to kill the people and how it works. They may know. She may know. So she know how to cushion the sound, I guess. But I don't know. So this is very interesting, but I wonder who is gonna be a murderer. I can't find it from here. Do you? All right. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the my reading practice. And recently, I got a message that my pronunciation is also improved, and I understand my reading fluency is improved because I can see the times of reading with so I can calculate the words per minute, so it's going to raising up, so my fluency is up. I can understand better. I couldn't judge myself about my pronunciations, but my native speaker friend told me that I'm improving my pronunciation. That was really good to hear that, and I also gained my confidence, and I'm convinced that this reading practice is effective, and someday I'll be fluent in English in the future. Also, my wife told me that my reading gonna be improving, and that was really glad to hear that from my wife. She's not good at English at all, but she can talk with other non-native speakers like my friend. I have a few friends from Taiwan and Hong Kong, and there was no friend in English-speaking country. They are not all are not native speakers, but we talk with them in English because I can speak Chinese very well. So she with me, when she is with me, she also talk with them in English, and she know some English, but she says my English is getting more better. Yeah, she's saying my English is getting better, so that was really glad to see that. Okay, thank you. I talked too much, I guess, and I want to finish this right now and going to do something, or maybe I will read again. I don't know. That depends. Okay, thank you for listening. Thank you, and please come next time. Thank you.